Namaskar, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. This is Rituraj and back again with a fresh episode of SapnoKePankh When Dreams Get Wings. As all of you know, through this program we have been portraying, we have been showcasing some awesome, brilliant talents from our own Hindustan, from our own India, from across the country, and they have had dreams. सपने देखे इन सबने और उन सपनों को हासिल भी की.
तू है हवा, तू बहता चल, तू है नदी, तू आगे निकल, दूर माना मंजिल तो क्या, राह भी है मुश्किल तो क्या, दिल से चाहो अगर तो सब है मुमकिन, दिल से चाहो अगर तो होगा सब हासिल.
Today we are going to talk to a bubbly, gorgeous lady from the small, beautiful state, northeastern state of Sikkim. And we would learn from her story how she has come from that small village of Sikkim to the Soas campus of London. Ji haan, I am at the Central London campus of School of Oriental and African Studies. And I'm going to talk to a Chevening scholar, Sanjana Chettri, and learn about her journey from Sikkim to London. Sanjana, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. I definitely do feel validated because I get to talk about my story, but at the same time, it also feels really nice that people with similar backgrounds, even their stories are being projected that are otherwise ignored by mainstream media. So it actually feels great. So thank you again.
And as I have told before, these are our unknown gems. They are unknown because they have been struggling on their own without any godfather. In the education industry, they have had mentors, probably not, but they have had a dream which they have made. They have reached that dream and they have attained success. Sanjana, Chevening scholar, as I have told before again, a British scholarship, really prestigious. Success rate probably was about 2% or less. 50 lakh rupees in a year?
45 lakh, yeah, that is the total amount.
But everything is fully paid.
Everything is fully paid. It is very, very comfortable. They pay your tuition, they give you a monthly stipend. That's very, very comfortable to sustain yourself in central London, which is quite expensive. And I've been able to save a little bit also, so it's quite comfortable, yeah.
And as you know, Chevening scholarship is one of those prestigious scholarships where they give you a cash card even before you fly out from India, so that the moment you land in London, in UK, you are not short of cash. So they give you kind of a cash card, a cash card where it's loaded with money. And as Sanjana said, it's a comfortable scholarship, but to reach that level, you really need to be having a passion to वो जो दिल में हो है, एक ख्वाहिश होनी चाहिए, एक मतलब क्या कहते हैं उसको, एक जज्बा होनी चाहिए कि आप वो स्कॉलरशिप जीते, बिकॉज इट्स रियली कॉम्पिटिटिव. हाउएवर लंदन में और यूके में देयर आर ओनली अ फ्यू scholarships that sponsor you fully for your masters. So any of you who are watching this channel today and you have an aspiration to do your masters abroad and specifically in UK, this is what you would like to know from Sanjana today. Sanjana, before everything, we would like to know from where you come from in Sikkim, and tell us in brief about your journey from that small village where you come from to this beautiful, awesome campus of Soas.
To be honest, it feels really, really surreal that I'm talking about my journey, in a very, very small village in London. So this is definitely very surreal. But I come from a very small village in eastern district of Sikkim. It's called Tambutar, and it's a very working class neighborhood where my neighbors are working as either drivers or working on quarries or working as in the grocery department. So it's a very friendly neighborhood where the spirit of community is quite alive, but there is a huge dearth of opportunities. So even if education is not a taboo for girls, like girls are sent to schools equally as boys are, I feel there is a certain stagnation that is reached after a certain point, because okay, yes, I finished school, now what after? So I think that stagnation is common across many villages in in Sikkim, and not many people are able to get through it because of lack of mentors or whatever. But I do feel very fortunate, despite coming from a working class family, despite going to a very mediocre school, it was a private school just for the sake of it. I think I was very blessed with teachers who invested a lot of confidence for me to sort of pursue that passion and growth. I think I went to a very small school, and I used to come home for lunch also. It was right there. So my parents put me in that school just for convenience. Even apart from that, I feel because the teachers invested so much in me, I did sort of try to get ahead, and I'm very fortunate to have been.
When did you complete your 10th and your 12th?
So I went to Baha'i school. I finished my 10th in 2014. I do not want to brag, but I was quite an academically, strong sort of student. Because
So we have been also showcasing students who have been average, but here in this case, Sanjana is academically strong during her 12th and 10th and 12th, as we will know about her journey. But before we go to your 10th and 12th, Sikkim, the place that you call, I'm sure it must be very scenic, right? Beautiful backdrop. Is it like hills and plains? Can we have some pictures of that?
Of course, I'd love to share pictures. My house is in a beautiful, beautiful location. There's a river flowing down right below my house. But even before, when I moved to that house, we were living in a very, very small house. It was literally in the middle of a jungle, but then there were rivers flowing downwards. So very, very nice. I've been fortunate.
I can relate to the scenes of Ladakh in Three Idiots, where Amir Khan, Phungsuk Wangdu, right? It's very similar, landscape, I think.
Yeah. Similar landscape, but I feel the weather is a little bit different, and of course, like the nature of people, etc. It's quiet. It's lovely actually. I love Sikkim. Yeah.
And then you were there till your 12th, and your mom is what? She's a teacher, is a homemaker.
So my mother actually has an incredible journey. I feel like someone should interview her just for her journey. I think if there is any embodiment of feminism that I've seen, I think I've seen it at home through my mother. My mum does a lot of informal jobs, like one day she's opening a restaurant for working class people, the other day she's opening a bar.
Opening a restaurant for a working class people means you're talking about some sort of a dhaba.
Yeah, very small, like how you'd imagine a dhaba, of course. But she's not she's not stuck to any job. She's like constantly moving, and I do want to credit her, that all of these things, and she also has this passion to sort of get into like little bit of sort of business. All of this actually has been motivated to support me in my endeavors. So I think I give a lot of credit to my mother, and she's absolutely great as well. Yeah.
Right. Hats off to her. बहुत Mubarak, and then what I would call it, congratulations to your mom and if you're watching this, I'm sure you'll be proud of what Sanjana has achieved today. So Sanjana, 10th and 12th you completed in Sikkim, and then did you do your graduation there, or did you move out?
So it's actually quite interesting. So in 12th, actually I want to bring a little bit about how I ended up studying what I ended up studying, because this is quite interesting. So like I said, I was in a small school. Because I used to work a little bit hard, I was sort of academically strong, as they would say. I mean, just because I'd put in a little bit of work. So I managed to score quite well in 10th. But of course, in hilly areas, if you've managed to do a little well, then everybody sort of puts you in a box that you have to study science, because this is a gateway for you to attain financial stability. Arts is for losers, is what I have been told.
That's very interesting. This is a myth in our society that if you score high, you should go for science, and if you score low marks, then you're good for arts. That's wrong. I think I have spoken to many a student, and I have found this is to all our professors, teachers, to our parents, that अगर बच्चों को high marks मिलने के बावजूद arts पढ़नी हो तो उनको पढ़ने दीजिए, because that's okay. And even if they have got low marks, in this case Sanjana of course has got high marks, but she decided to probably choose an arts subject. But low marks के बच्चे भी science में अच्छे कर सकते हैं in later academic career. Sanjana, tell us your story.
The myth that social sciences is for losers, especially in hilly areas, and I know this myth is quite prominent in the northeast as well. It has to be addressed, not because of course people should be allowed to study whatever their interest is in, but also because social sciences as a subject is so important. Like during during the pandemic, of course, we were in need of vaccines. But I think what kept the society together, what kept the politics together, what kept the community going, it is all because of social sciences. And I feel, especially people coming from working class backgrounds, because their stories or their their narratives are not quite represented in the discourse, all the more reasons for them to pursue, because politics and good kind of politics is what we need to get ahead in life, and for sort of sustaining an equitable, healthy, better society for everyone to progress. Yeah.
And you chose political science despite getting, what was your percentage in 12th?
So I scored 96.75 for in my 12th, and I ended up becoming the state topper, probably only because people do not, like I said, social sciences, people don't study so much. So I ended up becoming the state topper. But even then, it was quite difficult for me to, get into the college that I really wanted to. I wanted to study at Lady Shri Ram College for Women at the University of Delhi, and I did not know about the fact that University of Delhi existed and LSR existed. I was a part of this organization called Interact Club, which is a subsection of Rotary Club, and I met a lot of wonderful people who were exposed to these things. That's how I came to know. So I do want to credit my involvement with there as well. And they spoke to me about LSR, and then I went crazy. I went crazy because I so wanted to get into LSR because it was a big, like the way it was told to us, that it was a feminist space for women to come and be the way they are, and also sort of invest in their own confidence and growth. So I really wanted to study political science at LSR, but I didn't. LSR is known for its notorious cutoff. So even though I had a good percentage, I wouldn't have gotten through had it not been. There are 14 seats reserved for students from Sikkim.
State quota is what we call it, right?
Yeah, because it was annexed by the Indian state in 75, so there was some memorandum. So I made it to the merit list, and that's how I got into LSR.
But the point to be noted is 96% plus in 12th, and you chose political science. That's a message which I would like to give to all students, parents, teachers, professors, that yes, you can be doing an arts subject even if you've got a high marks. And actually it should not be looked down upon at all. That's a myth. Let's break it once and for all. So the lady Sanjana from that small village in Sikkim lands up in Delhi University, and then big Delhi, big city. I'm sure a lot of you who are watching this show who are from small cities and small villages in India, जो भी हमारे बच्चे देख रहे हैं इस शो को, अब छोटे गांव से ही क्यों ना हो, दिल्ली के नाम सुनते ही शायद घबराहट सी होती है. Let's hear from Sanjana what was her experience of landing up in Delhi was like.
Before going to Delhi, people from the northeast, of course, we're all scared of the big cities, but there's also this inherent, sort of bias or some sort of hostility against people, from the mainland for obvious reasons. But also my parents, before I was leaving, I was like, okay, this is a big city, you have to act small, you have to be submissive, and all of those things were drilled into my head before going to Delhi, which I'm sure is a story for many people. But of course, when I went to LSR, Delhi, of course, is overwhelming, but LSR as a space is so overwhelming, because I was sort of always used to sort of standing first in the class for that matter and getting that kind of attention. Suddenly you go to LSR and everyone's a topper, everyone's a school, everyone's a prefect, everyone's become the school head, and they have like impeccable work experience, impeccable sort of academic growth. So you're like nobody there.
And जो कहते हैं कि जड़ से हिल गए अब बिल्कुल.
मतलब like everyone's like that, and and also people are trained in classical dance, music, extracurriculars also impeccable. But we in Sikkim, or people in the other states in the northeast, we don't have that kind of privilege, right, to sort of also get acquainted with extracurriculars. So of course I did. For the first 6 months it was a very difficult space for me to adjust in LSR, and I did go through many mental health challenges, which of course should be normalized.
Really? I mean, it went to that extent that you were like kind of subdued and you felt, oh my God, okay.
Yeah, I was in the first 6 months, I had troubles adjusting to the place. I had troubles, adjusting to the academic requirements. Language is a big factor, even though now I'm quite fluent in Hindi. Earlier I was not, because I was only exposed to Bollywood films, right? So language was a big factor, and I would say that the only thing that did work for me, which might not work for a lot of other people from the Northeast is I sort of pass off as an Indian. I pass off as a mainlander. So I wasn't subjected to, overt forms of racism. There were sort of, there are institutional forms of racism that I was subjected to, but overt to kabhi nahi hua. So I think that phase, passing off that privilege I did get, but it was an overwhelming space, but I did get out of it. And I think at this point, I do want to credit all of this to lovely Bahujan feminist and activist on campus who introduced me to the kind of politics of social justice and the fight against oppression. That is what pulled me into, I was like, okay, I might not relate entirely because of my privileges or disprivileges in many ways, but I saw that people from small villages or small places with having experienced brutal caste oppression, they were coming out and reclaiming their agency, which also empowered me so much as like, if there is a story that I have, this is a space for me to sort of share that story. And I think really like, I have so much respect for all these women who reclaimed the agency and talked about and fought against oppression in all ways, which is how I was able to establish myself at LSR and then had a wonderful time.
So LSR, 3 years of your political science, and then what was your score? How did you pass? How did you?
I did. So like I said, because I was mentally not doing very well, the first semester was a total disaster. I think I barely passed, and it was you will not believe the kind of impact it has on you, because you've always known to be doing well and suddenly you're barely passing. But like I said, after I met these people, I was able to pull myself up and I was able to do well. I was able to not just do academically well, but also I was able to involve myself in a lot of extracurriculars. So I became some project head of some NGO. I was heading WDC by the end of my third year, Women's Development Cell, which is, and I was contesting for elections. So I think that kind of confidence came after.
With the support that you get. A very interesting point that Sanjana has made. जो भी बच्चे अभी इस इंटरव्यू को देख रहे हो, आपको अगर लग रहा है कि हाँ ये सब मेरे साथ भी हो सकता है अगर मैं दिल्ली पढ़ने के लिए जाऊँ, if I go to Delhi to study. Yes, there could be problems, but then here is a life example. जीती जाती एक example है जिन्होंने she faced the issues, you went through that, but she overcame, and of course she got good support, and thanks to all of you who supported Sanjana, and then you have been probably supporting a lot of students who come from elsewhere in India, not necessarily the Northeast. This could be somebody from interior Chennai, this could be somebody from interior Kerala who doesn't even know how to speak Hindi, but then thanks to all of you who have been helping these students, I think that makes a lot of difference. You heard Sanjana saying mental health issues. I am really shocked hearing that, but then I'm sure all of you students who have been facing this have also got good support. So Delhi is not a bad place after all, end of the day. And Sanjana, after that, so your political science, and then how did you, or what was the trigger for you to think about coming to UK and Chevening scholarship? And we'll discuss in details about the Chevening scholarship, or 45 lakh रुपए की scholarship. It's really huge. और उसके बारे में हम लोग डिटेल विस्तार से बात करेंगे, लेकिन what was the trigger for you to think of Soas and even think that big after Delhi University?
Right. So although I had gained a little bit of confidence at LSR, I didn't have the confidence that I had never thought, because of the kind of family background I come from.
हिंदुस्तान से भी बाहर जाएंगे.
Exactly, because going to Delhi, I'm the first in my family to study in Delhi. Wow. And to study arts, and for us, even that was the biggest thing, ki, oh my God, my parents are so happy that she went to Delhi and she's studying in LSR. So tabhi uske bahar to I would have never thought that I would apply outside, and I had never, it didn't even cross my mind.
I'm sure there are millions of students who are watching this, not from the metros, not from the class A cities, but the smaller towns, even smaller villages, who can, I'm sure, relate to जो आप कह रहे हो.
Yes, because we're so used to, like our people who live the same lived and material realities are similar to us. We don't see people like us or people who look like us, people who belong to our communities getting ahead. I mean, if there are people, but it's very, very small, or they're not highlighted. So it's very difficult for us to internalize that we can also do it. So I'm so sure, like, projects like this or episodes like this will also motivate people to definitely apply. But the trigger point was, I was working after my graduation. Of course, then also I wanted to get into JNU. There's another sad story there. I wanted to study political science further. year, and I wanted to get into academia then, but I couldn't make it to JNU because they had like this objective pattern, and of course, like for whatever problems, which also threw me deep into the.
You mean you had to go through a competitive exam and you didn't pass
I didn't pass again. That was another.
for your masters?
By 3 marks, I was short of 3 marks to get into JNU, which was again very sad. That again triggered my mental health issues. I was quite affected, and those 6 months right after my graduation was, of course, a very difficult moment. But again, I was able to pull myself up again after I started working, and I met, the support of a lot of mentors. My boss, my ex-employer, was very supportive towards me. He also drilled that kind of confidence in me. And finally, I had started thinking that, okay, I might want to pursue another master's. But then the trigger was a friend of mine, like a senior of mine, who also went to LSR, who's also from Sikkim, but from a very, of course, like a rural part of Sikkim. But she studied in Darjeeling for a school during her schooling. But when she made it to University of Cambridge, I was like, wow, like I have known her like through college, and she also comes from a very similar background as I. So I was like, kind of, wow, this is really like great. Like, okay, I can also maybe try. So then I started looking at colleges and scholarships again. I started looking at colleges, but I hadn't really thought of scholarships because even when I started thinking about it, I was only 10% sure that I would be able to get through. I never thought I would be good enough to make it.
So we'll talk about how you went through the whole process of getting the Chevening scholarship. Lekin someone who have been in LSR, Lady Shriram College in Delhi, someone who has come to Cambridge through a scholarship was the trigger for Sanjana. And I'm hoping that many of students, boys, girls across India and maybe across the world, because we're talking in English now, and I'm sure a lot of English speaking students in rest of the world would also follow what Sanjana has been telling, that her story would surely inspire you as well. We will have to say bye for now from this first section of Sanjana's interview. We'll come back next week and we'll talk about how did she go across applying for a Chevening scholarship. It's a very interesting story which I came to know while I was researching with her about her story, that in record time, Chevening scholarship people apply, they do not make it, they reapply again year on year. But then her story was, I suppose it was a record time when she prepared for her Chevening scholarship and actually got it, 45 lakh rupees. We'll go through the whole story. Before we say goodnight, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and of course click on the bell icon as they always say. Feel free to like or dislike or leave your comments. And we'll come back again with SapnoKePankh, When Dreams Get Wings, talking to Sanjana Chettri on her journey of getting the Chevening scholarship and arriving at London. Thank you so much for watching.
आँखों के गहराए निशान ढूंढे नई एक दिशा, धागे रोशनी के मांगे मेरी दुआ, जिंदगी ने दी सदा सपना।